Okay. All right. So this is making space for your mental health. Um, Really just a way to check in about mental health in general. How do we look out for ourselves when stress picks up, when we're juggling a lot of responsibilities? And then hopefully some practical tips and skills that you can take away from here as well as some resources. So as I mentioned before, my name is Kyle Dzintars. I'm a senior counselor at the Counseling Center, and I will be presenting throughout this program. So just a little agenda for you as we follow along. We'll discuss some expectations because this is on Zoom. It's a little bit different than if it was going to be in person. So I'll go over some of those expectations, what you can expect being here. Common experiences. So really just covering what are we going through right now? How might that be affecting our mental health? And then just trying to address some of the obstacles, the barriers that are coming up for us when we're looking to either seek some support or just figure out what's working for us. Some tips on caring for your mental health. So being able to walk away with some practical skills here. Counseling services information. So I'll cover a little bit of our services this semester, especially if you're a student and you just haven't really run into us before, don't really know much about it. I want to make sure you know what's available to you. I've got a brief activity at the end that we'll go through, hopefully a relaxing one, and that will send you away kind of feeling like you have a plan for rough days or increased stress as the semester goes on. And then at the very end, I'll ask if there's any questions, and I'm happy to stick around and answer anything that you might have. So feel free to ask along the way as well. If you want to put things in the chat, you can do so. And I just appreciate you being here. So as a disclaimer, this information is not a replacement for clinical services or therapy. This isn't the therapeutic work. If you are looking for that, those resources will be available to you at the Counseling Center, and you can always check in getting that kind of support. Because we're talking about mental health, I always like to just preface, if you're experiencing an emergency or feeling really overwhelmed and just need some support in the moment, I'd recommend you can call 911 if you need to go to the hospital or check in with somebody for emergency services. And then we do have our after hours crisis hotline, which is available. So I'll mention that later on in the presentation. But if you find yourself just getting overwhelmed, feel free to walk away from your computer for a little bit or turn the screen off or take a few deep breaths for yourself just to get yourself grounded. Privacy and confidentiality can't be guaranteed. We're obviously in a space so you can see each other, and you'll be able to see whoever puts any information in the chat. So just know that that's there. It won't be featured in the recording, so you won't have to worry about that. And I won't share any personal details in that way. Please don't record any of this information. I'll put the recording up on YouTube so you'll have use for it. But if you are ever interested in using any of these materials, if you're a part of a club or organization, I'm happy to share any of my resources with me. You can always reach out to me, and I'll put my email in the chat at the end. And then if you have additional questions, you can contact the Counseling Center. The number there is listed, extension 4416 for those of you on campus. All right. So what to expect? I'm going to present throughout this. Everybody's muted, and there will be opportunities if you want to chime in or unmute, you can do so. I will ask you to put any information or questions in the chat. That way I can keep up with everything that we're seeing or as we're going. And then there's no expectation to turn your cameras on throughout this. You can just sit here and listen. That is perfectly fine. If you have a question, throw it in the chat. And I mentioned already, this will be recorded. Okay, so let's get into some of this here. So I think we can't talk about mental health without acknowledging basically the bigger picture of what's going on in the world and what's going on in our own individual lives. So some common experiences right now that, I've heard from students throughout the pandemic, but even before that, some degree of this was present in just being in college and having responsibilities, financial responsibilities, paying rent, having jobs, finding internships. All that stuff brings some degree of stress. The pandemic, I think, has added new layers to that. So some common experiences that I keep hearing on a regular basis are, stress with the uncertainty of everything and just really not knowing what's going to change, how much it's going to change, and what to expect in the near future. That brings up a lot of stress for us. And for people in college, especially as you're nearing graduation, maybe there's another extra layer of that, not knowing what the future holds for you. Grief of what we've lost. So there's a lot of experiences that we've missed out on. There's a lot of, um, loss in our own families and our own friendships and a lot of different places throughout the world right now. So grief means a lot of different things for us at this point. Adjustment, constantly having to adjust to everything and keep up with everything, right? Like the guidelines at the school keep changing, the guidelines for masking and keeping ourselves safe keep changing. There's a lot of things that we're adjusting to all the time. Worrying about safety and health comes with the pandemic, obviously, making sure that we're all safe. People have described these as like mood swings, right? Like just feeling like a bad mood or something really like upsetting or frustrating happens very abruptly. Like those are happening a little more frequently than they might have had before. And I think can be a consequence of some of the stuff that we're experiencing in the world. It's hard to know that we'll have a bunch of good days and we're sometimes surprised when maybe a day turns sour. I hear this one the most at this point, struggling to focus and with motivation, which again makes sense with all of this uncertainty and I think struggle, challenges, some of the big emotional stuff that we're carrying around with us right now. It makes it really hard to focus on the present moment or to find motivation to do things that we've cared about in the past. Maybe it's just trying to figure out what our future is. How can we be motivated to move forward if that's really foggy and unclear? We've had increased isolation, less time with other people over the past few years. So just being able to see what that's like to lose connection or to find it hard to maybe communicate with people. I know more people are experiencing some of that social anxiety or just feeling like they don't even know what to talk about or how to say things that they used to feel really comfortable saying. So some of that stuff has changed. New traumas or resurfacing traumas. So for people who have been through traumatic experiences pre-pandemic, maybe it's brought up a lot more of that stuff. But the pandemic itself has been traumatic for a lot of us in a lot of ways. So acknowledging that we're all going through this very big shared trauma, I think is really important. I know sometimes we get this push to move past it or return to normalcy or even just wanting things to be back to normal. But we have to acknowledge kind of the big effect that this is having on the world, on us as individuals, in our environments. And finally, just being tired of all this, right? Like even me talking about this right now is probably like, oh, all right, well, yeah, we're always talking about it. I don't know what else to talk about. But I think that's because it's played such a big factor in our lives. And of course, we're going to be exhausted by it. Sometimes we just want to focus on other things that are meaningful and helpful. So I think it's important that we acknowledge what we're feeling as a whole. So what are we carrying? And what can we look forward to, especially as we move forward? So in short, if you are experiencing any of this stuff, perfectly normal. I would say probably the most reasonable response to what we've been going through. And there will probably be varying degrees of this. Some of you might not relate to much of it. Some of you might feel all of it. We all have different responses to how things are going, and we all have different situations that we find ourselves within. So it makes it a little bit different for each of us. So that being said, before we even jump into this, just notice right now how you're feeling in your body. I just talked about all of these stressors, all the things that I think I've heard from other people and what they're experiencing and what they felt over the past couple of years. Just notice what you feel right now. Like, do you end up feeling really tense? Did that really make you feel upset or unsettled? Was it frustrating to listen to? Are you just here? Just notice anything that kind of comes up for you. And for some of you, that might be a tension that you hold. Maybe you're gripping in your hands or your teeth. Maybe you're just here and calm, relaxed, taking care of yourself. There's a lot of different responses we have, but I encourage you to pay attention to how your body responds to this discussion. There might be things that make you feel more grounded and more calm. There might be things that are unsettling and bring up a little bit of that stress. So the more you pay attention to that, the more you can make adjustments on what's going to be the most helpful for you. So as we pay attention to those, we can start to use some of these strategies for caring for our own mental health. So I've been starting with this one a lot, which is self-compassion and just kindness to ourselves and to others. I think having a little bit of grace for what everybody's going through, and maybe that everything isn't perfect and people aren't going to be perfect. Not everything's going to go smoothly right now. So can we be compassionate to ourselves? Because we spend the most amount of time with us. And if we are being rude, mean, harsh, critical to ourselves all the time, that makes it really hard to feel grounded and safe, even when we're on our own. So if you have struggled with some of those negative thinking patterns, the self-talk, inner critic, some of that stuff is affected by our environments and maybe some of our past experiences. And some of it is encouraged kind of by this competitive nature of the world we live in. So can you be nice to yourself, even if you're worried that other people won't be nice to you, that are treating you a little more critically? Because we do have to learn to develop a really positive relationship with ourselves. So we'll practice that a little bit at the end here, but I want you to keep that in mind. Notice how you talk to yourself. Sleep, this one's probably played out and you hear it from everybody all the time, but I mean, it is a vital part of being a human being in the world. So we have to sleep. And sometimes that means finding things that help us to feel relaxed. So I'm guilty of it. I know most people are guilty of it right now. We have these nice little phones and they have access to everything that we could ever imagine. And it's really hard sometimes to put that down. There's been a lot of studies and research that has shown how much artificial lights especially can be really harmful for our sleeping. So people who are on their phones to fall asleep, right? Like I hear this a lot. I'm on my phone until my eyes get tired and then I go to sleep. It might feel that way, but internally your brain is still going. Your brain doesn't get to full sleep mode. It doesn't get to relaxation because of that. And that's an important part in this. You know, I think we need to be able to set a space and time and environment so that we can become restful at night. So that means like low lighting, maybe read a book, maybe do a little bit of meditation, maybe just sit and talk to somebody. Try and make use of time right before sleep to introduce the most relaxation you can to get better sleep, because without it, everything else is harder. People who don't sleep enough are more anxious, more depressed, have more negative outcomes, physical negative outcomes. So go to the doctor more often, feel more somatic symptoms. So make sure sleep is your priority here. I think it's really important for rest and to take care of our bodies, nurturing ourselves. Connecting with others. So are we comfortable talking about what we're going through? I hear a lot these days from students that they don't want to share what they're going through with other people because they know that other people are going through a lot themselves. And while I can see the point of that, right? Like you don't want to add more to someone else's plate. I also see the problem with just being divided, where we have to just deal with everything entirely on our own. And if we flip the roles there, right? Like one of your best friends is struggling and they're worried about putting too much onto you, chances are you're going to be there for them. You're going to be supportive. You're going to listen if they really need you to listen because you care about them. And that works both ways. I think for friends, family, the people that we feel connected to, it's really important to trust that they're going to be there for us as much as we're going to be there for them. And is that the case all the time? Of course not. There are going to be times where maybe that's an issue. Someone's not ready to be a support for you. But I think it's really helpful to know that what you're carrying isn't just like a burden for somebody else. It's an opportunity for someone to offer help and feel good themselves. So keep that in mind. You don't have to just sit with everything entirely on your own. Limiting devices, I mentioned this already for screen time, but I mean, we're here on Zoom right now at night. sometimes that fatigue is very real. We need to stop looking at these screens so much just to let our eyes rest, to let our brain slow down, and to stop that pattern of seeking and constantly looking for things, especially with scrolling. It always creates this reaction that is sometimes really harmful. I put get outside on here in nicer weather times, but I think it still applies. Some of you might like the snow and getting outside. Maybe not today. Today might not be the best day to go outside, but nature has been shown to really help our mental health and well-being. It connects us to the world that we live in a lot more. Our body responds really well to greenery and water and just being in fresh air. So when you can, even if it's brief this time of year, take some time for yourself, go for a little walk, sit outside for a bit. I think it's really rejuvenating. And the Counseling Center offers a lot of programming out at Rice Creek in this weather and in nice weather. So if you're ever looking to just explore the campus a little bit, I highly recommend getting out there for some of our programs. You can always check out our website for more information on those. Taking time for yourself. I know in an academic setting, going to school, you have a bunch of classes, you might have a job, you might have an internship, you might have a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes it's really hard to say, I'm gonna set some time aside to do nothing, to do what I wanna do, to play games or just have a little bit of fun with friends or sleep, take a nap. I think that stuff falls off very quickly, but that's the stuff that keeps us feeling energized and motivated, that makes us feel alive in some ways. We have to make time for that stuff in our lives, even if everything else is demanding that we don't. Can we have good boundaries to say no to things? Can we say, no, today I can't keep up with everything. I need to really take a mental health day. And how do we best advocate for ourselves in those situations? Make time for others. So can you make time to be supportive? And the answer to that might be no sometimes. You know when you're not having a good day, when you are not going to be a good listener, you're not going to be able to support someone who's going through a big struggle. And it's okay to say no to that. Maybe it's rescheduling and saying, like, I'm going through a lot right now, but I would love to be able to be there for you in the near future. Can I get back to you when I'm feeling a little bit better? Make time to be that for other people, because I think as we're experiencing, this is a very shared experience. And the more we're there for each other, the less overwhelming all of this feels. So I think those are some really important points, at least for just keeping in mind the starting practices. What are the basics? What are the things that we can do for ourselves on a regular basis? And keep in mind that you shouldn't be necessarily judging yourself and how well or not well you're doing any of this. It isn't about the judgment. It's about what's working. So if you notice that you want to be more compassionate to yourself, but you struggle with it, maybe that's a good opportunity to talk to somebody who can help you with that part of it. Maybe it's meeting with a counselor to go over some of the negative self-talk that's going on. Maybe it's just being honest with a friend that you're really struggling to feel good about yourself right now. That's okay. We don't have to be perfect or the best at this. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna have nights where we get 5 hours of sleep. Can you just be kind to yourself even when things aren't working out perfectly? And I think that's an important part here. And then some just additional, more practical things that maybe we can put into action, right? So exercise, I think, can always be helpful. We know the positive effects of movement. Our bodies are designed to move. It does good for our brain, it does good for our body. So find some ways to incorporate movement into that. Maybe that's going for a walk or a run. Maybe it's practicing a little bit of yoga. Even if it's chair yoga, maybe your mobility doesn't allow you to practice like a routine that uses your entire body. There's a lot of videos and opportunities for doing stuff that meets your needs specifically. Going to the gym, working out, I think any kind of movement. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's just standing up and stretching. Move as you need to, when you need to. Practicing mindfulness. So this could be meditation, mindful eating, mindful walking, yoga, anything that puts you in your body. So let's practice this right now. We'll do a very simple one. I want you to notice 5 things that you can visually see in your space. And you could just say it to yourself, but 5 things that you can see. Maybe it's the screen in front of you, or something on your wall, or your feet, your hands. Notice 4 things that you are touching or that's touching you. So that could be your chair, your clothing, maybe your feet on the ground. Notice 3 things that you can hear. And if you have headphones in, maybe that's a little tough, but maybe my voice, the sound of your computer, something going on in the background. 2 things that you can smell. Maybe food if you're eating, something you're drinking, candle. And lastly, 1 thing that you can taste. Hopefully something good that you've eaten or drank recently. But that's a very simple practice. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method of just being in the present moment, in your body. You have to access all of your senses in order to have those experiences. Even to call attention to them now brings you here and now. You can't be anywhere else. So that's an example of mindfulness. Can you do that with your thoughts? Can you do that as you eat and taste your food and enjoy your food? Can you do that when you walk? Take a look around, take in everything that you can. Enjoy where you are when you're there. Using creativity. So this one's a big one. I personally love anything creative, not necessarily to be quote unquote good at being creative, but just to create something. Maybe it's journaling some thoughts down, writing a poem. Maybe it's painting a picture. Maybe it's doodling in a notebook. Maybe it's singing to your favorite song or dancing. Anything that allows you to be a little bit creative, I think can be a good outlet. Like I said, we need to move our bodies. We can do a lot of creative things while moving our bodies. And maybe finding ways to just express something in not language can be really useful for us. So can you make a picture about how angry you are? You don't have to show it to anybody. You don't have to do anything with it. You could literally rip it up and throw it out when you're done. There's no grade. It's just to express the emotion that is arising. Can you practice healthy boundaries? Because it is okay to say no to things. As much as we are building our resumes and trying to find good opportunities for our future and ourselves, we can also say no if we're overwhelmed. We can say no to any kind of requests or things that we're being asked to do that are harmful, or maybe that we're just not up to in the moment. It doesn't mean that we won't ever be able to do those things, but there are some times where we're just not able to, and that's okay. We need to create space for ourselves to feel better in order to do the things that we want to do. And then finally, this is more of just a reminder, because I think we all feel that our productivity kind of defines us, right? Like how good we do in school, how much we take on, how many opportunities we take, how productive other people see us as. And I think it's really important that we know that we are way more than just that. We are not defined by that as a whole. We are a person who needs things beyond just being productive. And that can mean social time, and that can mean rest, and that can be fun. Like we need that stuff in our life just as much as we want to do all of those other things that might be quote unquote productive. So know that your value is way beyond that. It's a piece of why you're here in school. It's a piece of why you're at this workshop right now, but it's not everything, and that's okay. So hopefully some helpful tips in thinking about how you can best take care of yourselves and manage some of this stress that we're feeling. But I do want to say, because I think as we've talked more about self-care as a culture, as a society, even here right now, you can't self-care your way to not feeling things, especially when they're major things that are going on in the world, right? Like we're in a pandemic. There's a lot of stuff that we're juggling all the time. We can't just self-care our worries away, our fears away, our anxiety and stress and anger away. We can feel a little bit better, and maybe that's enough for us. But we're going through some really big traumatic experiences. And I think it's okay to accept that. We're not necessarily going to feel our best all the time. We're not necessarily going to feel as good as we might have before. That's okay. So notice how you can take care of yourself, but notice what we can do as a society to take care of each other as well. Because the more patient and understanding you are with people who are also struggling right now, I think the more gentler our society becomes. So notice if that stuff plays a part in your clubs, your organizations, your groups, your friendships, your family, and notice if we can introduce a little bit more understanding for each other and just knowing that we're all trying our best. We've never been through this before. We're just doing what we can to get through right now. All right. So obviously I'm a counselor, so I'm going to mention a little bit of how to seek some support. As a student on the SUNY Oswego campus, there's a lot of ways that you can reach out to people and connect. Just share kind of what you're going through to get some ideas on how you can get support, some resources that might be helpful for you. So I've included some here that are connected more to our counseling resources on campus, but look to your departments, look to teachers who you have a good connection with. Look to friends on campus, off campus, look to family, anybody who you've connected with that might be able to hear you out when you need. I think the bigger that network is, the better and more supported we're going to feel. We don't have to just rely on one specific thing, and we don't have to just turn to something like counseling to do everything behind closed doors, because that puts a lot of pressure on us as the individual, and we can be there for each other. So obviously recommend reaching out to the people you trust first. Maybe that's enough to kind of work through what you're going through. Just being heard sometimes is super powerful. It makes us feel valued and acknowledged. And sometimes just saying what we're going through is a relief. We hold a lot of stuff in, and sometimes it's good to let someone else know where we're at. I'll note here our counseling outreach peer educator team for the counseling center. They're a group of undergrad students, some of whom are here. We'll be running a tea talk, which is a drop-in space. So maybe you're looking to do a little bit of a self-care activity and talk to some people. That's a good place to go, just to meet some new people, share some space, do something to take care of yourselves. So if you're ever looking for support, and I think they can be really helpful as students on the campus too, and just helping out with resources or just kind of relating to what you might be going through. No appointment necessary. It'll be on Mondays from 3 to 4. We're working on a location right now, so you can always follow them on Instagram at Oswego Cope, and you'll get more information as soon as it's posted. The Counseling Center offers a program called Let's Talk. So this is a drop-in space. It's not a counseling service necessarily. It's more of meeting with the counselor to kind of just talk about what's going on, get some ideas on what you can do to take care of yourself. So some people aren't looking for counseling. They don't really need to sit down with someone on a biweekly basis and talk through like trying to achieve a goal. They might just be looking for support in the moment, right? So something happens, you just need to talk to somebody outside the situation. Let's Talk can be really good for that. So those are offered throughout the semester, and you'll see our drop-in spaces are in the library and in Lakeside over by Johnson Hall. If you go to our website, you'll see the dates and times. They were just posted, so you might see some of the flyers around campus, but no appointment necessary. If you go there during the times and dates that are listed, you'll be able to speak with someone right then and there. It might be maybe a 15-minute wait at the most if someone else is in there before you, but you can talk to someone and just kind of get a sense of maybe some ideas on what you can do or just to feel heard. I like the 7 Cups of Tea app. If you haven't heard of this one before, there's a bunch of free elements to it that I think can be really helpful. They offer a bunch of different strategies for taking care of yourself and helping to get out of some of those spirals that we experience, maybe anxiety or sadness or depression. So they have some activities you can do to help promote some positive mental health. And then they also have an active listening portion. So if you just want to text with somebody who's trained in listening and can be there to be supportive, that's a good space to go as well. Some things require a little bit of urgency, right? So maybe you're overwhelmed, you don't know who to talk to, you can't really wait for an appointment. Counseling Services does offer a walk-in hours, Monday through Friday during the week. And if you need to be seen, that's probably the quickest way to just sit down with someone and kind of go through what's going on. We have counselors who are designated for the walk-in hours. So they'll meet with anybody who comes in during that time. Again, it might just be a little bit of a wait if more people have come in before you, but you will be guaranteed to be able to be seen that day. So no, those are Monday through Friday during the week, during our business hours, which is 9 to 5. So you can access some of our services during those hours, and appointments are scheduled during that time. And then finally, because crisis happens sometimes outside of business hours, we do have the crisis hotline, which I mentioned before. You can always call our main office number any time of day, any day of the year, even holidays. And if you press option 2, you'll be connected to our crisis hotline. You'll talk to a crisis counselor over the phone, and they can walk you through just basically ensuring safety and then making sure that you have connection to resources to help offer some support. So you will get a follow-up call from the counseling center. We usually get a report of any calls that are made to the crisis hotline, just so we can follow up with students. Really, it's just to make sure that you're doing okay. And even if you call and you feel a lot better afterwards, we'll just check in to make sure that you're doing okay and see if you need anything from us. So just wanted to mention that. So no surprises there. So talking to someone can be really helpful. Finding a way to mention some of the things that you've been struggling with, or just need to get out to somebody. Find the good, positive listener in your life. You know, not everybody is going to be that for you. Not everybody can be that for you, but you know the good listeners, you know the people who are there for you when you need them to be. And I think that can be really helpful when we're struggling. Okay. So I mentioned a bunch of resources already, and I know that I don't have all the answers for everything. So is there anything in terms of self-care resources that you think that might be helpful for anybody in this workshop that you'd be comfortable just putting into the chat? So that could be self-care activities, that could be ways to take care of ourselves, or any resources. I'd love to see if there's any that I didn't talk about here that you find really helpful or meaningful. So you can put those in the chat. That would be wonderful. Okay, and so while you're thinking, maybe trying to come up with something, I'll put up our counseling services information so you have all the details here. We're located in the Mary Walker building, which is down with health services. We're in the same building as health services. We're just in the back. So if you walk through the main entrance and head toward the back of the building, you'll run into our reception area where our office manager, Patty, is usually located. So she'll check in, she can get you set up with appointments, and you can also call if you need to. This semester, we're offering in-person and virtual appointments. So if you are looking to get set up with a counselor, we do bi-weekly appointments. And typically we work on a goal that you have for yourself. So that could be to work on ways to alleviate some anxiety. That could be working on communication skills. Maybe you have a conversation that you really need to have with somebody, but you're stressed about it, unsure about it. Maybe you've experienced loss, are expecting some big changes, or have gone through some big changes. There's a lot of reasons why people go to counseling. So just know that that's available to you. You can always call to schedule an appointment or stop in. Let's talk. You can also talk to one of our counselors who can get you set up with services. So feel free to use any of those services. And then we will be offering webinars and workshops similar to this. I'll mention 2 more that are coming up at the end of this. But if you're just learning a little bit more about mental health and trying to learn ways to take care of yourselves and maybe understand what people and yourself are going through, that's a good way to do it. And you might not need clinical services or support in that way. You're just looking to learn. So feel free to attend any of our workshops. We have drop-in groups that you can also attend where you can connect with other people. So there's a lot of ways that you can overlap and get some support. You can also check in with our counseling outreach peer educators, either to find out a little bit more about the team themselves. They do a lot of work around campus to help support mental health. And I think it's a really great team where you get to meet some people and do some really positive work to help other people feel supported while learning yourself about mental health. So if you are interested in that team specifically, you can check out our website there. Applications will be due in April. So you have a little bit of time if you're interested to check it out. And if you want to apply, you can. Our website is listed there and our Instagram accounts. So Mindful Oz is the counseling center's Instagram account. We'll post events, updates. We have a weekly calendar that we put out of anything that's going on each week, and try and get some information out about mental health in general. And then our COPE team will also be providing some information about their events and what they're working on. So feel free to follow both of them. Right. Any questions about services or anything that I haven't answered or wasn't clear? I'm happy to answer any of those before we get into like a little activity. Okay. Feel free to send them at any time if you have them. All right, I wanted to put this up there at least to start. I think it's really helpful to set a plan of action for ourselves. So we're going to have rough days, right? We're going to have days where things are really hard. We could be overwhelmed and stressed. We could be dealing with situations outside of just our schoolwork. We could be just juggling a lot of stuff. So I think it's really important that we have some sense of a plan of action for ourselves. So here's a template. You can make it your own. If you want to have like a piece of paper or a pen, feel free to jot some stuff down. If you want to take notes, whatever you want to do during this is fine. But I really just want you to consider what would go in some of these categories for yourself. So activities. You're feeling down. You're not having a good day. What are some activities that you can do for yourself to help either feel a little bit better or to take care of yourself when you're not feeling okay? So for some of you, that could be going to the gym, doing a little bit of exercise. That usually helps you feel better. For some of you, that might be, I need to just lay in bed under a cozy blanket and just be here. That's okay too. Any kind of activities that bring you a sense of calmness, peace, acceptance, or that promote some positive in your life that's going on. So it's going to be different for different days. I think the more activities you have that you know have been helpful or that have worked in the past can really help in these situations. Nothing's going to be perfect. Nothing's going to work every single time. And we're constantly learning and growing. So any kind of activities that really help you to feel a little bit better when you need to, I would list there. There's a lot of ways that we can take action. And on those really hard days, start with the basic, smallest, easiest task that you can think of. Like maybe it's just like getting out of bed and getting a drink of water. Maybe it's doing the dishes because things have just like accumulated so much and you need some control of something. Take care of an easy task to get you started. Sometimes that's the best for just getting us some energy and motivation to keep the ball rolling. Support. Who do you turn to? I think we know who we turn to when we need to, but having it actually written can be really helpful because we can kind of exhaust all of our supports. Who's going to be there for us? Who do we know for sure will be available if we need to talk? Who has been helpful to us in the past, even when we didn't ask them to be? They just were. Any sense of support can be really helpful. This could be people, this could be pets, animals. This could be people in your immediate circles, whether that's friends and family. Could be professional connections if you're really close with a teacher, someone who you can relate to. Could be a counselor. It really could be anybody who you feel a sense of safety and security with, someone who can just be there for support. It might be someone you go for guidance and advice. It might be someone that you just feel comfortable sitting with and being with, right? Like how often is it sometimes that just being with somebody makes us feel a little bit better? We don't have to feel alone. So maybe identify any of the people, animals, anything in your life that might be really helpful for support. Um, I've also started to learn to think of this even in terms of like fictional characters, right? Like, is there a good book that you like going back to spend some time with characters that really meant something to you? Maybe it's picking up a book that you've loved and being able to spend a little bit more time with them. Like it helps you to feel connected. That's okay too. Daily considerations. So these are the very, very basics. What do you know on a daily basis that you can do to just take care of your mental health, your well-being? So is it taking a shower? Is it taking a nap? Is it eating breakfast? Is it just walking or moving a little bit? Is it listening to some music? There's a lot of ways that we can take care of ourselves on a regular basis and in our daily practices. We can also check in with the people we care about to make sure that they're keeping up with that stuff. Like notice when your friends aren't really keeping up with the same kind of behaviors or practices that they normally would, right? Like a friend who's like usually super tidy and keeps everything really organized. Notice if things are a little messier and things are more chaotic than they normally would be. Those can be signs that we can offer some support to someone who might be struggling. First, we just have to notice it. So pay attention to that stuff and know what works for you on a regular basis as well. And then the fourth category here, I left blank on purpose because self-care planning is different for everybody. What else do you need to know that you're going to be able to take care of yourself there? This could be a space for words of self-compassion wisdom, right? Like, what's the thing that you need to hear when you are feeling your worst? That could just be something motivational, inspirational. It could be, it's okay not to be okay right now. It could be validating your feelings, your emotions. Like, I am angry right now, and it's okay that I'm angry at this situation. Being able to kind of have those reminders can be really helpful, but you pick what's worth it for you. What else do you need in this self-care plan that might be helpful? So any considerations there, I think you can make your own. So feel free, you can take a screenshot if you want to, you can make your own, it's yours. Do what you will to make it feel like it belongs to you and is personal. And I do recommend if you are close with people who might also be struggling or who you want to be supportive in your life, this might be something to share with those people as well. Like, what are you doing to take care of yourself? How can they check in with you to make sure that you're feeling okay? These are good conversations to have amongst friends and family, especially when you trust them. Like, don't feel like you have to do all of this on your own because you definitely don't. I think the more isolated we feel, the worse we sometimes really feel. So just some ideas there. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of an activity here. It's a little bit of writing, a little bit of breathing. You can do it however you want to. If you want to just keep your inner dialogue to yourself, that's cool. If you want to write some stuff down, that's cool. You can take this practice as you will, but get comfortable. That could be in your chair, if you're in your bed, if you're on your floor, whatever that means to you, just put your body in a comfortable position. So if you're in a chair, maybe putting your back against the back of the chair, putting your hands in your lap, somewhere at your side comfortably. Notice if you're holding any tension, just kind of like let your body ease into calm, relax. Maybe that's unclenching your jaw, loosening your forehead muscles. Maybe it's unclenching your hands. Maybe it's picking your shoulders up, rolling them back, stretching side to side. Let your neck relax, move around a little bit. And for this activity, some of you might feel comfortable closing your eyes. That's okay. Some of you might not feel comfortable closing your eyes. Find maybe a fixed point in the room that you can look at. So I invite you to find something that you can focus on or to close your eyes. And we're going to start with a nice deep breath in. Feel your lungs fill up. And then exhale all of that air out slowly. We'll take another deep breath in. Feel your lungs fill up even more this time. And a slow breath out. And just acknowledge what you feel and where you're feeling it. This asks you to pay attention to your body. Are you holding tension? Do you feel calm? Is there a little bit of stress, anxiety? Are you relaxed? Just notice any feelings that are present and notice where you notice them. Maybe they're in your stomach, your chest, your head. Anywhere you feel it. And what I want you to do is label that feeling. I'm feeling a little stressed. I know that because I feel it in my stomach. I'm feeling a little calm. I notice that because my legs are relaxed. Capture what you're feeling and where you're feeling it. And just acknowledge it. And we'll take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. I want you to say to yourself, I accept all that I feel and I can be with this feeling. I can accept all that I feel and I can be with this feeling. Take another deep breath in and slow breath out. One more deep breath in, biggest breath you've taken so far. And a slow exhale out. And if you've had your eyes closed, when you're ready, I invite you to open them. Come back into your space. Take in some of the light. Take in whatever's around you. And if it's helpful, I would encourage you to write very briefly what you felt. You can keep it short. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. The goal isn't to overwhelm you here, just to put it down somewhere. And as you do that, maybe pay attention to your breathing. Keep taking those deep breaths in and slow breaths out. And as you write what you feel, consider one action that you can take. So maybe this was not such a nice feeling. Maybe it was a little bit of anxiety. This was stressful. What's something you can do for yourself when you leave here to help ground yourself, to help yourself feel a little bit better? Maybe you felt relaxed. Maybe you were calm and this was nice. Write one action that you can do to bring this into your life more often. What's something useful and helpful that you can practice when you leave here or you can do again tomorrow? So what we're doing here is acknowledging the feeling, acknowledging what it feels like in our body, and finding a way to take an action. How do we continue to either bring something into our lives, or how do we take action to take care of ourselves when we're overwhelmed and stressed? So this is a good activity for isolating what you're feeling right now and then helping yourselves to feel a little bit more grounded. So as you're doing that, take another deep breath in. Slow breath out. And just notice anything that you might be feeling. So obviously this is something that you can take with you. You don't have to finish it right now. Maybe this just got you started and you're going to think about it, put it into practice later. That's okay. And hopefully the self-care plan gives you some ideas on moving forward for this semester, for maybe just even tomorrow. Whatever you need, I think it's a good place to keep that plan available to you. So having it written, I think, can be really helpful. Put stuff into words for us. And having it posted somewhere familiar, somewhere where we're going to run into it, can really be helpful on tough days when we are totally absent-minded, unable to think of what's going to be helpful for us. So I hope that gives you some ideas on what you can do, what you should look for, what can be helpful for you. And I will plug these last two events that are coming up in February. So the next one is on Tuesday, February 8th, next week. That one's a little bit more in depth than this one was, looking at mental health. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how to assess how you're doing and then what resources might be useful for you depending on how you're doing, that's a good one to attend. We'll talk a lot more about mental health. And on February 15th, that is a Tuesday as well, there's a self-compassion workshop. So you heard me stress self-compassion quite a bit in this one. That workshop is designed to help you practice a little bit of self-compassion and learn how to. Sometimes it's not easy. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that, I'd say check that one out as well. So you can find those will be on the calendar. And you can always go to our social media to find the links for those. Both of those will be on Zoom like this and recorded. So if you can't be there, you'll be able to find it on YouTube a little bit later on. Okay. So anybody have any questions or anything that they're hoping that I can answer before we wrap up for tonight? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I'll stick around and we can chat. And then before everybody goes, I just have one more poll at the end here that I would love some feedback on how this went and if it was helpful. So again, it's all anonymous. I'm always trying to make my programs a little bit better. So I would love your opinions and thoughts on how this went. And then if you would be interested in coming back to a counseling program, what kind of topics would you be interested in attending? Like which ones would get you here to attend some of our events? We're always looking to kind of meet what students are looking for. So if you have ideas, I would love to see them and hopefully we can build some programs on that. So otherwise, I just appreciate you being here. Hopefully this was helpful, just taking care of yourselves and grounding yourselves a little bit. And I will stick around to answer any questions, but otherwise take care of yourselves. Have a good night and just thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. Thank you. Have a nice